construit à Carpe, un endroit qui semble être déjà détruit par une bombe nucléaire. Le Diefenbunker est un incroyable exploit d'ingénierie.
Yes, that was a lesson about the Diefenbunker, and no, what that man said wasn't entirely clear. It may have involved something about the bunker already having been destroyed, but little slip-ups in translation are not a huge concern to Mike Paterson, because in the new series Parle-moi de ça, Ottawa, the comedian is more focused on juggling every single role in the show, from unsolved mystery-style TV presenter to Mike Convoy, the conspiracy theorist.
Oh, j'espère que c'est, mais ça, là, le gaspillage d'argent de ces pauvres! Hey, communiste!
To an orange-painted goldfish man in denim short shorts, transplanted from Atlantis and trying to fit in. And that fish, named, by the way, Monsieur Poisson Rouge, in a way sums up the essence of Parle-moi de ça, Ottawa. He's a newcomer to town. He's a fish out of water, looking to learn the ways of a culture he doesn't yet understand. The same could be said of Mike Paterson and the show's other co-creator, filmmaker Christopher Redmond, who you might know as the guy behind Stittsville on Patrol. Both are Anglophones, delivering an homage to Ottawa's French culture and making fun of the French-English divide. All 6 episodes of Parle-moi de ça, Ottawa premiered this week on demand on Bell 5 TV1, Channel 1, and both Christopher and Mike join me on the line now. Hello there.
Hey, Alan. Alan, Neal, good to see you. And what I was saying was Carp already looked like a place that had been destroyed by a nuclear bomb.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying.
All right. Just to clarify.
The irony of building a bunker in Carp.
That was the full correct translation. Now, jumping ahead, though, to Monsieur Poisson Rouge, because I feel like once you bring up the orange-painted goldfish man in denim short shorts, you kind of have to talk about him. This was a character that had been close to your heart for many years, I understand. Mike.
I did it in cabarets when I was like a young comedian. I did it many times on stage. I had pitched this multiple times, and everybody was like, what? A guy dressed up like a fish trying to fit in? This doesn't work. Then I met a director-producer named Christopher Redmond, and I said, what about a fish out of water? He's painted orange, and he's in a bodysuit, and he's trying to fit in. And Christopher's like, yep, what next? What else you got? Let's go.
What next was a jean Speedo. That's what was next.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, to be technical, yes, not the jean Speedo is, in fact, the next step in the process. But, Christopher, why, like other people seem to think, no, Mike, you shouldn't play the fish boy on stage. What was it about that sketch as an example that made you think, yes?
Well, I think you actually hit the nail on the head, Alan. It kind of summed up the whole series, right? It is about this fish out of water. Mike is someone who's an Anglophone who was, getting by as a comedian, but it wasn't until he learned French and started performing in French that he really started to excel. I, as well, am an Anglophone. I grew up in Saskatchewan, but I learned French a bit, and I don't think I would have a career in Ottawa if I wasn't working in French as well, directing French TV shows. And there's a lot that happens in Ottawa, but there's not that many options if you're only speaking English. So it kind of like represented what the heart of the show was going to be, which was this struggle to work in a French language when it's not your first language, because I think we're used to French directors, Denis Villeneuve and, Jean-Marc Vallée, you name it, working in English, and it's fine. But you don't usually go the opposite way. So did I just send the Denis Villeneuve of Ottawa? I think I did. So let's go with it.
This is, you're not allowed to quote yourself in the press release, just so you know. Was once called the Denis...
No, come on, just finish the sentence, Alan. I need to be able to put that as a pull quote.
I didn't say it.
I think it was famous philosopher from Ottawa, Nietzsche, that said...
he was once the Denis
everybody from Ottawa.
Now, there is a reason, though, perhaps, that English directors and actors choose not to work in French. Is it not daunting for each of you?
Yeah, and you know what? I got multiple warnings, like sincere warnings from people about doing this series, being like, you got to be really careful working in French, and there's language police, and there's I don't know, there's this perception that even within the community, that I think that they're like very delicate and, careful when you're making fun of. And the whole point of the show is to make fun of Anglophones, and pretend that we're super fluent French who are making fun of Anglophones. And the joke is a little bit of the snake eating its tail because it's so obvious how much we're Anglophones. But I really think it works when you see, put all together. So I wasn't so worried about the concerns.
I do stand up all the time in French, and they are literally all about it. If anybody's making an effort to just be a part of the culture and just go for it, they are like, let's go, buddy. And they're like, I've heard many times, like I was in Jonquière, and I was told, jaillis des anglophones, mais j'adore Mike Paterson. And I was just like, is that a compliment? Are you going to beat me up? So it's great.
But now, what was the inspiration for that, Mike, though? I mean, in terms of saying, because some people would just ignore that little voice, much like they'd ignore the instinct to make the fish boy into a character, they would also ignore the idea of, okay, I know what I'll do is start doing stand-up in French. What was that sort of eureka moment for you?
I got dragged into it. I did some Casual Sport commercials, which is like a sports cage, and whenever the Canadians got 5 goals, my face would come on the Jumbotron. And then these French comedians were like, hey, come to Drummondville with me. And I'm like, I can't, bro. I can't speak French. They're like, I'll give you $300. And I was like, whoa, I'm there, bro. Let's go. And then I did a bunch of stand-up. Like, my 6th stand-up was like an audition for television. My 9th stand-up was on television. And then the host of the show put me on his Musicless show, where I played the character of a guy that didn't understand French, and I didn't understand what the host was saying, and while he was making fun of me, and it was a great way to feed my family. You know what I mean?
There's still some dignity to it. There's like,
of course.
You're bridging a cultural divide in some way. It's honorable.
I am in on the jokes. I understand.
Christopher, there are also, from what I understand, there's French-speaking crew members, and your editor's first language is French. Has that led to guidance from them as well, saying, you know what, actually, maybe you want to do this instead?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we made sure to have a French crew so that because, when you're making fun of an Anglophone speaking French, we're still Anglophone speaking French, so it's like hard to understand sometimes. And we had to have some of the crew be like, oh, this is how you should say it, even though if you're trying to sound bad, we need to understand what you're saying. And the editor as well was very helpful, Carl. And Mike actually thought, Mike, I don't know if you want me to say this, but he was like, I can't believe how mean you were to me in the edit when he finally saw the footage. Because, I didn't want to be, flattering necessarily. I wanted it to be funny. And so those mistakes, sometimes we embrace them and we really lean into them. And sometimes, hopefully the editor, like the French editor, Carl Sauvé is his name, was able to kind of save us from ourselves.
Mike, is that fair? They were mean to you?
There was so often that I would introduce myself and be like, you know who I am, right? And then for some reason, we talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, and then the 3 people who knew who I was in the Byward Market, for some reason, the edit didn't have them in.
Okay.
So there's a couple of people that knew me, and I was like, why aren't those people in? We only talked to the people who were like, I don't know who you are.
And to explain to people, the part of the show, and as well as, Mike doing these sketches, is talking to people on the street, doing these streeters, sort of on the talking to people having to answer questions in French. How did that go for you in terms of recording the people on the street? I
absolutely loved it, because sometimes you had me, who's a second language French speaker, speaking to another person who's a second language French speaker, sometimes 5 people who can't speak. There was one guy, I was like, what is the most romantic gift you could buy for your partner? And he was like, j'ai acheté un pomme. And he's like, I'm like, an apple? He's like, it was a very expensive pomme. And I'm like, what do you mean? But he was talking about Apple products, like earbuds.
Oh.
And he was just saying, des pommes. And I was like, bro, that's not what they call it. They call it Apple, because that's the name of the company. It's not the name of the fruit, but it was just wonderful. It's just wonderful what you get when you kind of needle people, because everybody knows how to speak French. Everybody knows all this stuff. We all know every lyric of every Tom Petty song, inside our brains. We can unlock the French. You know what I mean? It's how I feel. Like, I feel like if we just needle everybody enough, they'll have a conversation with you about it.
Christopher,
and that was part of the fun, too, is, usually when you're an Anglophone, anyone who speaks a little French and has traveled to, it's usually France, but even Quebec, and you try to speak French, they kind of raise an eyebrow and then speak to you in English, right? And what was really fun was interviewing people on the street. And they're like, I don't speak French well. We're like, great, that's what we're looking for. and it gave them permission to like stumble a little bit and to practice their French out loud and to make fun of it and to not be so, like everyone learns a little bit of French, but people are scared to speak it because they know it's not perfect and they're afraid of how people react. But we wanted to that's the space we're living in. It's like, don't be afraid, just go for it.
So did anybody try and get out of it by saying, no, my French is perfect?
No, they just made fun of us in ways we couldn't understand normally.
We'll cut that in the edit. We don't know what they just said.
There was a couple of people from France who I was like making fun of their accent. I was like, it's an accent bizarre. Why do you speak that way? And they're like, this is the real way to speak French. And I was like, I don't know, bro. I don't know.
It's not how we hear it. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
They actually genuinely got mad and left during the interview, so we didn't include them. But yeah, we had a couple encounters like that.
Okay, yeah. Humor does not cross all cultural divides necessarily.
No.
Is there a chance that there will be a crossover with Stittsville on Patrol? Christopher, could you see those two characters meeting?
I think it's a real natural fit. I mean, if you've seen Mike and you've seen Stittsville Patrol, it's like I've got a bit of a type, shall we say? Yeah. And I think they would go so well together. Just these like loud, outspoken guys on the street trying to get their way. So it's totally possible. There's so many different sketches that we can do as well.
And beards.
I think.
And beards.
And the big beards. Yeah. I mean, what can I say, Alan? I'm an auteur. Did we not mention this earlier?
You did. I believe the Denis Villeneuve of something. Yes.
Come on, Alan. I'm going to quote you, but I need you to say
I know. That's why I didn't finish the sentence.
And I have like my high school friend lives in Stittsville, and when I heard about Christopher, I heard about the show, I had to talk to my best friend's 14-year-old son. I was just like, hey, Frank Jr., what do you think of Stittsville on Patrol? He's like, it is the greatest show I've ever seen. And I'm like, sold, let's go. Like, we're going to make another one. It's cool.
So now, Christopher, you had success with Stittsville on Patrol. Is there any indication yet of how Parle-moi is doing?
I mean, it just came out yesterday, so it's really hard to tell. But if people can check it. Anyone who has Bell can see it. Just search Parle-moi, even if you're have a minimal amount of French, because they really do look at how these shows do. And I feel like we've got so much room to do more shows in Ottawa. It's one of my mandates. I want to do shows that aren't just shot in Ottawa, but are set here.
Right.
From Stittsville Patrol, I've done kids series O is for Ottawa. I've done Sesame Street here in Ottawa, and I always try to feature the city. So I'd love to do more of it. And find different ways to make it work at a lower budget, because obviously these don't have huge budgets, but we keep finding ways. This year I had to hijack my 8-year-old daughter's birthday party, and I recruited all of her friends, made them come early, which was some real questionable parenting, but some excellent producing, I have to say, to get some free extras. So we'll always find a way to get it done in Ottawa. That's right, yeah.
Well, I am intrigued to see what happens with it next, no matter what the quote is that they end up using on the Blu-ray version of this when it gets released. Christopher, Mike, congratulations. Félicitations. And we'll see what happens next.
Thank you, Al.
Cool, bro.
Au revoir. Christopher Redmond, Mike Paterson, co-creators of the new series Parle-moi de ça, Ottawa, and the show's 6 episodes are now available on demand on Bell 5 TV1, Channel 1.
As an early child care